Om Stapakaya Chadharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Stapakaya Chadharmasya Sarvadharma Swarupine Avatar Varishtaya Ramakrishna Te Namah Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let us pray to Sri Ramakrishna, the embodiment of all religions, the Supreme God Incarnate, to remove all our ignorance, to lead us from unreal to the real, to lead us from death to immortality, to give us peace and illumination. Let us bow down to Him with love and devotion. May our prayers be answered favorably. Sri Ramakrishna was talking to Pandit Shashadhar, a great scholar of the time. He was trying to fix the Pandit on the right way. He was very much impressed by the sincerity of the Pandit. A good and noble man indeed. But he needed to do some spiritual practices, otherwise remaining simply good doesn't solve the problem of life, doesn't liberate one from bondage, doesn't lead one to peace and joy. Just doing good and engaging in philanthropic activities may give you a kind of mental satisfaction, but if you don't aspire for God, all that is waste. You are doing for the purpose of realizing God. That's the important point which we should always remember. So, as Sri Ramakrishna has said many times, set your goal and then work on it. So Sri Ramakrishna is telling him to do practices. Enough of all these outward activities, giving lectures, talking to people. Enough of them. Enough. Now turn your mind in a different direction. Stop all those activities for the time being. The world will go even without your giving talks and lectures. Engage yourself in doing sadhana. See God, talk to Him. Then, if you get commands from God to go and lecture, then you go and lecture anywhere you want. Only Sri Ramakrishna could tell like that because he knew the value of realization. And it was so effective, Pandit Shashidhar accepted totally what Sri Ramakrishna said. And then he said to him, the ways to God are innumerable. You can approach God through any path. Of course, they are broadly classified as the paths of jnana, karma and bhakti. Sri Ramakrishna is pinpointing one particular quality if you have to realize the truth. And that is, Sri Ramakrishna is telling in very clear terms. You can refer to Gospel, page 467. If you are sincere, you will attain God in the end, whichever path you follow. That's the statement. Whichever path you follow. And again, Sri Ramakrishna tells what is jnana, what is karma. And finally he says, the path of devotion is the easiest way to God in this modern age. There's a point in Sri Ramakrishna telling this. The point is this: we are all so individualistic. Each one is very conscious of his individuality, of his ego. I am so and so. That's why anything, slightest thing that might happen, we get irritation. We give expression to dislikes. Because my ego is very important for me. At the same time, I don't think the other man also thinks in the same way as I think. That's Maya. So, I try to keep up my ego all the time, thinking all the time everybody should be subservient to my ego. Anyway, there's a lot of things to talk about. The way how ego works in each and every one. So, as long as you are having this individual perception, I am this, he is that, I am so and so, she is so and so. So you love to introduce yourself. My name is like this, I am doing this, I am doing that. What's your name? What are you doing? So you feel joy in communicating that way. You feel expression to your feelings through communication. So all these things you can have in the path of devotion. God certainly exists as a separate being for you. God is available to you. He will talk to you. He will give you peace. He will give you joy. He will give you whatever you ask for. Like that, you can keep in touch with the divine form of God. Naturally, is it not good if you can come and talk to me? Oh, I went to temple and I talked to Swamiji. I was so happy. I was so unburdened. Yesterday, one person came. He was waiting for me to see after the Aarti. Afterwards he came. Then he said, Swamiji, my daughter wants to write a brief essay on Guru. So I want to know something about it so that I can teach my daughter. And then of course I briefly told what is Guru and who is Guru, who is to be called Guru, etc. And then I told him, if you are really deeply interested to know about the concept of Guru, etc., go to Chicago University Library, take a book called Guru Gita, which contains 100, maybe more than 100 verses, maybe 300 verses, maybe 300 verses, dealing with Guru. All these verses are taken from Skanda Puran, that is, dialogue between Lord Maheshwara and Parvati. Lord Shiva is giving the teachings of this wonderful concept of Gita. It is written very nicely. Of course, Sanskrit and English versions are there. As usual, English version is not completely giving the real meaning of the Sanskrit verses. Anyway, you will have some general idea. And then I took him to the bookstore. There's a book, Hymns and Gods. I showed him in that book about 10 or 12 verses on Guru, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, like that it runs. Ajnanatimirandasya jnananjanashalakaya chakshurunmilitayena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha. Mannata Shri Jagannatho Madguru Shri Jagadguru Mahatma Sarvabhutatma Tasmai Shri Gurave namaha, etc. It runs very nicely. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, he is everything, etc. I showed him, if your daughter is to write short essay, I think this is enough. You take this hymn, English version also is there. You first of all read, and then you give nice presentation to your daughter in whatever way you have to convey those thoughts to her. And he was so happy. And then he was telling, I am telling this story to tell you one thing, that is this. He said, Swamiji, this ashrama is great. It is his words. I am quoting his words. Previously I used to come, but over a period of time, so many things happened. I went this way, that way, etc., etc. But really, this ashrama helps a lot, particularly when you are burdened, when you are troubled, when you are in crisis, etc. If you come here, just stay for a few minutes in the chapel, we get lot of relief. That's what he said. Then I told him, continue to come now. And he admitted, once he could not come, it dragged him very fast in the opposite direction. He could not come at all. I told him, it is like that, world is like that. So that's why in spite of all your activities, you should not miss to come and spend some time in the ashram. So, that's very important point. So Sri Ramakrishna is suggesting you why bhakti is very easy, because you can communicate with God, you can talk to God, you can exchange your views, you can enjoy your ego properly, like that. So, but one very important thing you have to remember, whatever path you may follow, you will have to deal with your own mind. That's the important point. If you know how to deal with your mind, then everything becomes easy. Nothing is difficult. That means what? The mind should always go towards God. Swamiji, let my mind go towards the world for 50, 60 years. Afterwards, let the mind go towards God. No. If it cannot go now, it cannot go anytime. Forget about God and other things. You are simply deceiving yourself by all type of that convenient talks. We call it convenient philosophy. Just to suit your mind, you talk. Putting in a philosophical way, oh, I can do after, as if you can do it according to what you want to do. No, you can't do. Even if you want to do, you can't do. That's the you should always understand that point. I want to do many things, but I will not be able to do. So, the important point here is, what is sadhana? Anything that is important for your spiritual life should be taken as sadhana. Now I am telling you today, mind should be always directed towards God. So trying to keep the mind in that way is sadhana. As Sri Ramakrishna suggested, there are so many ways leading to God. You have to prepare the way properly. Then only mind can go. So, even though it is difficult, by persistent practice, it can be done. So what we are now is the result of our past practice. Again, practice makes us what we shall be. Why we have come into this world? Why our mind is continuously running after all sorts of pleasures in this world? Because thinking of the senses has brought us down here to cry one moment, to rejoice the next, to be at the mercy of every breeze, slave to everything. Slave to everything. This is shameful. And yet we call ourselves spirits. These are the words of Swami Vivekananda. Go the other way. Think of God. Let the mind not think of any physical or mental enjoyment, but of God alone. Instead of hearing foolish things, we must hear about God. Instead of talking foolish words, talk of God. Instead of reading foolish books, read good ones, which tell of God. These are the words of Swami Vivekananda. When we keep on following these valuable instructions, that is sadhana. Automatically your mind comes under your grip. So, Shri Krishna made a very significant statement in the Gita. Atmaiva bandhuhu, atmaiva hi ripuratmanaha. Your mind is your friend. Your mind itself is your enemy. Our own mind on one hand is our friend, and on the other, our foe. When it is under our control, the mind is our friend. When the mind has control over us, it is our enemy. So, mind plays a very crucial role. Mind is the cause of attaining enlightenment. Mind is the cause of being in bondage to matter. When the mind is perfectly under control, we know what we really are. When you know what you really are, that means enlightenment. And when we go the other way, we become slaves, subject to matter and mind. So, mind is the cause of our sorrow, mind is the cause of our joy. With mind we think. Sometimes we can think in our own way. We can give our thoughts a direction. Sometimes we cannot. Sometimes mind gets upper hand and we are at its mercy. For example, thoughts come which we don't like. Thoughts come which are injurious, but we are helpless, though we are not aware of it. If we study the mind, we know how treacherous it is. How much is our slavery to the mind? But most of us are not aware of it. There are so many problems. World is full of problems. Life is full of problems. Social, national, international. So all these problems, they react upon us. We come under the influence of these problems, so we become upset. But behind all these are the individual thoughts of different persons. What we call national thought is the outcome of the thinking of a large number of individuals. International problems arise out of the thinking of different nations, just as national problems are the outcome of individual thinking. Anyway, coming to the point, how thoughts play very important role. Controlling mind means controlling thoughts. Thoughts are more dangerous than atom bombs. Real explosions come from the mind. Real explosions come from the mind. So, do you keep quiet, knowing the danger? You must find out the methods of dealing with the mind. You will have to. The problem doesn't come from outside. It comes from inside, within the depths of our minds. Again, to take the teaching of Gita, Arjun, the disciple, asks a question which is very important for all of us. The question is simple, but it is so pertinent. Athakena prayuktena papam charati purushaha anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. Why does a person commit wrong? Who prompts him to do that? Forcibly, as it were, one is dragged to do things which are wrong. This is what Arjuna is telling Krishna. Of course, if you refer to Western literature also, we find Saint Paul has said, man does that which he doesn't like to do, and he cannot do what he wants to do. Long before Saint Paul, probably you are aware of the character Duryodhan in Mahabharata, he said the same thing. He said, I know what is right, O Lord, but I can't do that. I know what is wrong, but I cannot withdraw myself from that thing. The Sanskrit version of this English is Janami dharman nachame pravrittihi, Janami adharmam nachame nivrittihi. Duryodhana says. So that is our real problem with which we are forced to grapple. Sometimes we think by repenting we are washing away all our wrong things. It may help you a little bit, but repentance or confessions cannot serve as remedies. In another passage of the Gita, Arjun makes a confession which is also the common problem of humanity with respect to mind. Yoyam yogastvaya proktaha samyena madhusudana etasyaham napashyami chanchalatva sthitim sthiram chanchalam yamana krishna pramadi balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. Arjun is asking Lord Krishna, after hearing Krishna's teachings, Krishna was teaching him the philosophy of equanimity, samabhav. So Arjuna is telling, O Lord, you talk of calmness of mind, serenity of thought, but I find it is a hopeless task. Mind is so restless, it is so wild, it is so powerful, it is so strong. One can control the blowing winds more easily than the mind. This is our common problem. And this is the real problem. So, Arjun's confession implies the answer. Why are we forced to do things which we do not like to do? What's the reason? Because we have no control over our thoughts. Mind, like a wild horse, leads us to think wildly, and we lose control over ourselves. In a day, how many times we lose the control over our mind? How to know that we have lost control over our mind? By your utterances, by your facial expressions, by your movements, by observing you from head to toe. Definitely we can understand how you have lost your control over your mind. So all these points I am telling you from the spiritual point of view. If you are a sadhaka, be very strict about your own mind than being strict to others. Criticize yourself than criticizing the others. Judge yourself than judging others. Never speak even a one harsh word to anyone, even if such a person has committed a mistake. You are not supposed to do any such things. No. That is the way of spiritual practice. If you do that way, then only you can hope to control the mind. Otherwise, you are always under the control of mind. That means you are always in bondage. That means you will be always suffering. That means you will be always restless. So, what is the solution? The solution is to learn how to control the mind. To learn how to be the master of one's own mind instead of being its slave. So we have to study great persons. Sri Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, Holy Mother, Lord Christ, Buddha. Many holy persons are there. Many. They have shown the way. Come on. Don't simply talk about spirituality. Do something in practice. Stop talking. Do practice. If you follow that, then you can see God in this very life. Master said, page 470, one day, some 6 soldiers came to the temple garden at Dakshineshwar. I met them in front of the Kali temple. One of them referred to God as very compassionate. Indeed, I said. Is it true? But how do you know? He answered, because, sir, God gives us food and takes every care of us. I said, and Sri Ramakrishna is telling, why should that surprise you? God is the father of us all. Who will look after the child if the father doesn't? Do you mean to say that the people of the neighboring village should look after the child? Narendra is Swami Vivekananda. Then shouldn't we call God kind? Master said, have I forbidden you to? What I mean is that God is our very own. He is not a stranger to us. Pandits answered priceless words. Master said to Narendra, I listened to your singing, but I didn't enjoy it, so I left the room. Your mind is now set on seeking a job, and therefore your song sounded dull. Narendra flushed. He felt ashamed of himself and remained silent. The master asked for a drink of water. A glass of water had been placed near him, but he couldn't take it. He asked for some fresh water. Later it was found that a man of immoral character had touched the first glass. Pandit said to Hazra, You live in his company day and night. You must be very happy. Master said with a smile, this is indeed a great occasion for me. Today I have seen the crescent moon of the second day of the bright fortnight. All laugh. Do you know why I referred to the moon of the second day? Sita once said to Ravan, you are the full moon, and Rama is the crescent moon of the second day of the bright fortnight. Ravan didn't understand the meaning of these words. He thought Sita was flattering him and became exceedingly happy. But Sita meant that Ravan had reached the fullest limit of his power and prosperity, and that thenceforth he would wane like the full moon. Rama, on the other hand, was like the moon of the second day. He would wax day by day. The master was about to take his leave. The Pandit and his friends bowed low before him. It was not yet dusk, and Sri Ramakrishna returned to Ishan's house with the devotees. The master took his seat in the drawing room with Ishan and his sons, a Pandit and a few devotees. Master, smiling, said to Ishan, I said to Pandit Shashadhar, you have hardly set your foot on the tree, and yet you aspire to lay hold of a big bunch of fruit. First of all, practice some spiritual discipline. Then you may teach others. Ishan said, every preacher thinks that he enlightens others. The glowworm also may think that it illumines the world. Imagining this to be the glowworm's feeling, someone said to it, O glowworm, how can you bring light to the world? You only reveal the intensity of the darkness. Master with a smile. But Shashidhar is not just a scholar. He also has a little discrimination and dispassion. A Pandit who was present said to Sri Ramakrishna, you are indeed a great soul. Master said, you may say that about sages like Narada, Prahlada, or Shukadev. I am like your son. Of course, in one sense, your words are true. It is said that in one respect the devotee of God is greater than God himself because he carries God in his heart. All rejoice. It is said in the Vaishnava books, a devotee regards himself as a higher and God as a lower being. Yashoda, the mother of Krishna, was about to fetter Krishna, who was God incarnate, with chains. She believed that no one but herself could take care of Krishna. Sometimes God acts as a magnet and the devotee as a needle. God attracts the devotee to himself. Again, sometimes the devotee acts as a magnet and God as a needle. Such is the attraction of the devotee that God comes to him unable to resist his love. The master was about to leave for Dakshineshwar. Ishan and the other devotees stood around him while he gave Ishan various words of advice. Master said, a devotee who can call on God while living a householder's life is a hero indeed. God thinks, he who has renounced the world for my sake will surely pray to me. He must serve me. Is there anything very remarkable about it? People will cry shame on him if he fails to do so. But he is blessed indeed who prays to me in the midst of his worldly duties. He is trying to find me, overcoming a great obstacle, pushing away, as it were, a huge block of stone weighing a ton. Such a man is a real hero. Pandit said, you are right, sir. The scripture says the same thing. There is in the Mahabharata the story of the pious hunter and the chaste woman. Once a hermit was disturbed in his meditation by a crow. When he cast an angry glance at the bird, it was reduced to ashes. The hermit said to himself, I have destroyed the crow by a mere glance. I must have made great progress in spiritual life. One day, he went to a woman's house to beg his food. She was devoted to her husband and served him day and night. She provided him with water to wash his feet and even dried them with her hair. When the hermit knocked at her door for alms, she was serving her husband and could not open the door at once. The hermit, in a fit of anger, began to curse her. The chaste woman answered from the inner apartments, "I am not your crow. Wait a few minutes, sir. After finishing my service to my husband, I shall give you my attention." The hermit was very much surprised to find that this simple woman was aware of his having burnt the crow to ashes. He wanted her to give him spiritual instruction. At her bidding, he wanted her to give him spiritual instruction. At her bidding, he went to the pious hunter at Benares. This hunter sold meat, but he also served his parents day and night as embodiments of God. The hermit said to himself in utter amazement, "Why, he is a butcher and a worldly man. How can he give me the knowledge of Brahman?" But the hunter was a knower of Brahman and had acquired divine knowledge through the performance of his worldly duties. The hermit was illumined by the instruction of the pious hunter. The master was about to take his leave. He was standing at the door of the next house where Ishan's father-in-law lived. Ishan and the other devotees stood by the master. They were waiting to bid him goodbye. Sri Ramakrishna said to Ishan, "Live in the world like an ant. The world contains a mixture of truth and untruth, sugar and sand. Be an ant and take the sugar." Again, the world is a mixture of milk and water, the bliss of God consciousness and the pleasure of sense enjoyment. Be a swan and drink the milk, leaving the water aside. Live in the world like a waterfowl. The water clings to the bird, but the bird shakes it off. Live in the world like a mudfish. The fish lives in the mud, but its skin is always bright and shiny. The world is indeed a mixture of truth and make-believe. Discard the make-believe and take the truth. Sri Ramakrishna got into the carriage and left for Dakshineshwar. Very good. You have to divert all your attention, all your energy, all your resources, your everything to see how to organize your own mind instead of trying to organize other men's minds. You have no time to look after even yourself, and you are poking at others. Why should you do that? If you keep on poking on others, it will be a nuisance for you. All the time you will be thinking about them. But by that process, even the little peace you have got will be lost. So, try to concentrate on what you should do yourself individually. That's the way of practice. Never start giving sermons to others. Not talking even a word. That's called spiritual practice. Do you think it is so easy to fight the world otherwise? Do you think it is so easy to control the mind otherwise? Do you think it is so easy to have the peace of mind otherwise? No. Equanimity means not being shaken by ups and downs in life. Ups and downs in the situations, in the environments. Things happen. Don't get irritated. Samabhav. Same-sightedness. Same-sightedness. Sukha dukkhe same krutva labha labho jaya jayo. That's samabhav. Sukha dukkhe in happiness and misery. Labha labho in profit and loss. That means you have to rise the mind above these things. As long as the mind is attached to matter and the things of the world, you are bound to lose control over yourself. Calmness of mind is possible if you have got discrimination, vichara manobhav. Always analyze. Analysis. Analyze the things. Why it is happening? Why? Then it makes easy. It makes much easy. Equanimity is a spiritual strength. These are all important to fight the evil. That's why Lord Krishna says abhyasa. By constant practice, by trying to focus your attention on your thoughts, by analysis you will be able to reduce its vigor. It's true. It is true. Sometimes the situations, the circumstances, they force us to commit certain things. But then you must apply the method of calming yourself. Don't immediately act upon as soon as the storm comes. Be aware of the storm. Try to avoid the storm. Don't allow yourself to be swept away by the storm. We are subject to lots of storms in life, in our day-to-day life. Sometimes with reason, sometimes without reason. Simply we are bombarded by so many things. We become unhappy for nothing. Become unhappy for nothing. Like that. It's a constant practice, no doubt. But if you are constantly in touch with Sri Ramakrishna Vivekananda teachings, most of the things will be able to understand and establish yourself properly. Always remember God. You are living for the sake of God, for the love of God. Then you go and do any activity.